All right, welcome everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm Kyle Rasmussen, and today I got with me one of my best friends, Dave. Dave, how's it going?
It's going great, man. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, awesome. Me too. I'm excited to hear about your experiences and what it was like living in the Midwest and then moving out west. So, excited to talk about all this and get your thoughts on travel.
Okay. And the word Midwest, I kind of thought about that a lot when I was coming up, jotting down my outline for things that I wanted to talk about. And the Midwest, I think, means so many different things to people who live in the Midwest and to people who live on the West Coast and the East Coast or in the South. Because if we think about it, I'm pretty sure the Midwest almost starts right at Colorado border and goes all the way to Ohio ish, and that's so many states. But a lot of those states, as you get further east especially, they change as far as landscapes and stuff. And where I grew up, a lot, so many of the states around me, every state around me, it was pretty much, it's all farmland. And I know states out in the west and then in the east as well, they have farmland as well, but the entire states all around us, the entire state is used as farmland where I'm from. So landscape is very bland. And as someone, I've always been a very outdoorsy person. That's how I wound up moving out this way, but we'll get into that later. And I've always enjoyed things like camping and just any outdoor activity I was always there for. But camping was very much different. Growing up in Iowa and South Dakota, you would go to either a lake or probably what you guys would consider a small pond. And there was usually trees in that area, which was actually that's where you got to see trees. You see trees in town, and you saw trees around what they had were state parks.
That's so funny.
Otherwise, it was all farmland. So camping was fun, but you would watch TV and you would just see all these amazing places that had mountains and volcanoes and waterfalls and just deserts. Even the thought of seeing a desert to me was just wow, look at this. There's endless area of I don't know if you call it heat wave death, but I would love to see those places. But for the most part of my life, I had never had those opportunities.
Yeah, so for all the listeners, where did you grow up?
I was born in Iowa, lived there for 12 years, and then I moved to South Dakota about 3 hours away. I moved 3 hours away, so I kept a lot of my close friends there in Iowa, but it's the same state, basically. I mean, don't quote me on this, but they're definitely two of the top 5 corn-producing states in the country.
Having driven through them, yes, I would agree.
So very much the same state. But a lot of people, when they think South Dakota, I mean, if they know anything about South Dakota, they'll think Mount Rushmore or the Black Hills. Those are amazingly beautiful places. That was a 5-hour drive for me when I lived in South Dakota. So even that, I had to drive 5 hours just to go see the Black Hills. Not even mountains, but the Black Hills, which are also beautiful, but it's not quite like seeing mountains.
Yeah.
So that was the closest drive you had. Otherwise, it was a 14-hour drive to either Montana or Colorado before you could get to see any mountains. So it was tough.
Yeah, I know. Again, having driven through the Midwest, it's amazing how flat the land is. Growing up, you were talking about camping. For me, living in Washington State, which has a lot of mountains in it, camping is you go up into the mountains, into a very remote part of the state, and you're hiking through the hills and everything, and you find a nice lake to pitch the tent. So for you guys, going out to a pond or a lake or something, and it's all flat on the way there, that's something that's hard for me to imagine.
You basically went for the bonding and the campfire with all of the food that came with the campfire, and just the fact that you could be outside. It's just crazy how I enjoyed being outside so much that I still got enjoyment out of going and camping at some of these places because, I mean, I would love like someday to like show you and some other people from out here who maybe have never been to Iowa and South Dakota what some of their like outdoorsy tourist attractions are, because they would be not even probably in the top 50 when it comes to any of the states out here on the West Coast with all the beautiful places and things to do outside. So that's what I had to work with, but I still got enjoyment being outside. So when I finally did have that opportunity, and I seized that opportunity to go see some other things, and it definitely changed my life for the better.
Yeah, for sure. So you lived in Iowa for 12 years, moved to South Dakota, and then how long ago did you move out to Washington?
So then I lived in South Dakota until I was 29. When I was 29, I really had a good opportunity to take an internship out here before I finished my last year of school and kind of get a jump start on living out here in the West Coast. So I seized that opportunity. But it was my first trip out here was when I was 22, I believe. Yeah, it was in May of 2014. I was living with a few friends, and they just inspired me. I'd never even been to a concert before in my life. And they said, hey, Dave, do you want to go see this music festival? And I didn't even know what a festival was. This is how uncultured I am. But they're like, you want to go see this music festival? A lot of live bands playing 3 nights in Washington. And I mean, they basically had so much of it already mapped out ahead. They just had me convinced from the start. All I knew is, as a bartender, is like, okay, I got a bunch of money I need to make. We planned it well in advance, but I was like, okay, I need to get together a bunch of money because I had 0 camping equipment, and they were planning like a 9-day trip. So we got all the stuff figured out and worked out, and we were planning it where we were going to stop in Montana for the first night. We're going to leave like right after work and just drive all through the night, and then that way we got to Montana and we would just switch driving throughout the night, and that way everyone got sleep. But that way we could get to Montana and Custer National Park, and we could just start early in the morning, immediately get our campsite set up, and then go hike. And I mean, I was excited, but I had no idea what laid in front of me as far as how beautiful Montana was. So it was my first time to Montana, 22 years old, first time seeing mountains when I woke up on that long drive. And I just remember thinking, and I still think to this day, that this is my favorite campground. It was called Woodbine Campground in Nye, Montana, and just very exclusive. Like, I love the campgrounds out here in Washington, but this was the one and only campground I saw where it felt like there was a lot of people in this campground. It was a big campground, but you never knew anyone was around you. That's how spread out everything was.
Oh, that's nice.
But anyway, seeing mountains, first, we stayed there for 2 days, hiking, seeing those mountains, and it was in a mountain valley where you had mountains on each side of you, and you had a river that had rapids in it, and areas like that going in between. It was just life-changing those first couple nights there. I had never seen anything like it.
Yeah. Wow. It's fun to hear you talk about it that way, because, you know, again, for someone like me who grew up here, surrounded by the mountains, I feel like we'd probably take that for granted here. I mean, it's just like, okay, yes, that's a hill, that's a mountain. I've seen those every day of my life, kind of thing. But to hear someone like you explain, like, it was a life-changing experience for you to see that for the first time and experience that. And that's ultimately what led you to move out here? Yeah.
I mean, it was the entire weekend. There's more to it. I'll keep getting into that. But I never, that was my first time hiking ever. Because there's no such thing as hiking in Iowa and South Dakota. That, so many of the outdoors activities, like I was getting back to, those don't exist in Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. They just don't. They don't have the land that's set up for it. and they don't have the elevation change to do any fun or exciting things. I mean, if you want to get into skiing and snowboarding, that does not exist either because they'll have big hills where some people go do it, but they got to make their snow.
Yeah.
Most of those places will all make their snow. So it's very sad when if you've ever been elsewhere like Colorado, Montana, Washington, Oregon to do skiing or snowboarding, and if you were to go back there and go with some friends and then they're like, oh, hey, we're going to go over here and do it here, you would be thinking the entire time, this is the practice hill.
Yeah.
But anyway... the little things even just excited me. I'd never done trail hiking. So they had like 4 or 5 different trails there to choose from and go across obstacles. Like all of these things were new and exciting to me. Seeing all the different trees and grizzly bears, saw grizzly bears.
Really?
Thank goodness they were on the other side of the river. But watching them scale the rock side, just...
That's pretty crazy to see in the wild.
Very cool. Getting off trail has such a thrill to it. I don't know if people who are used to being out here and probably doing that get a thrill from that, but having someone who's like never been to a place where there is a little bit of a thrill that comes along with getting off the path and kind of just venturing where you want to go, with the potential of getting lost or being put into some sort of a sketchy situation because maybe you can't get back down the way you came and now you got to find a new way.
Yeah.
So going off path, and then I just remember our first hike there, we got off path and we just kept following this waterfall, and it was a plateaued waterfall where you would get like maybe another 200, 300, 400 feet elevation gain and it would plateau off again. And I just remember we kept thinking, man, we are getting so close to the top, but every time we got to the next one, it looked the same length away from you each time. And I just remember thinking that was the first time where I wanted to finish something and desperately want to finish it, but knew I was not prepared for it and couldn't do it actually. So we stopped maybe 3 hours going just straight up this waterfall when we found it, and then we had to go back.
Yeah. I'm sure that was probably hard too it's high elevation in Montana too, so a lot less oxygen flowing there, especially climbing up a mountain.
I was worried about that, but I don't know if maybe it was like all the excitement or the stimulus that I was getting. I never really noticed that. I actually have only ever experienced the elevation sickness once when I was in Colorado at a baseball game, at a Rockies game.
Oh, really?
I felt the elevation sickness, but it could easily have just been because like we had just so many crazy things to look at around us that I never honestly paid attention because I couldn't tell you if the elevation sickness affected me or not.
Yeah.
But I do know that that was also one of the first times where my cardio truly took a hit. I definitely was someone who always kind of prided myself in my cardio fitness, and hiking, going elevation changing, going up and down, and that there was a different experience in that aspect for me too. But that's something you don't think about initially. You're so caught up in it. It's not until you someone takes a rest break, whoever it is, and then everyone just like calms down. You sit together, you have your snacks, catch up on your water, that you understand like, oh man, my heart is just going.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before. Hiking up here in Washington, and you're totally right. Like, you can be in great cardio shape for running on flat surfaces or that sort of thing, but it's totally different climbing up a mountain. It doesn't translate over, like you said. So yeah, it's crazy to kind of experience that. So okay, couple days in Montana at that campground, and then what was the rest of the trip like?
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's like my first thoughts of Montana. Have you driven all the way through Montana before?
I have driven all the way through Montana.
Okay.
Yeah.
You took I-90?
It's very mountainous in the west and very nothing in the east.
Yeah, that's just an interesting state. Like when you drive through it and you think about the nickname for the state, you're like, yep, total sense, big sky country. There's like just so much openness there. Like,
oh yeah.
It was one of the more peaceful drives because I guess you're on the same road the entire time. There's not much to honestly pay attention to other than maybe the one or two vehicles by you. Yeah. But just peaceful area. Like I could easily, who knows, someday see myself, like say if I don't live in Washington forever, Montana is a very desirable state. Very beautiful.
I thought about that too.
I'm really intending on going to my sister and her husband are planning on coming up to Glacier this summer, and I've never been to Glacier. That's a place I want to go see. But
that'd be fun.
Montana is such a beautiful state.
Yeah, I agree. The natural beauty of it is incredible. Honestly, like in all my travels, other than New Zealand, Montana is probably the most naturally beautiful place that I've been to.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I would have to agree with you, and you've seen way more than me, so for you to say that and for me to think that too, that means a lot because you've definitely been to a lot of beautiful places. And then we made our next stop. We stayed in Nye, Montana for those 2 nights. Again, that was probably my favorite campground, Woodbine Campground. If anyone wants to go to that area, there's a lot to see in that area because it's in Custer National Park. You're not very far from Yellowstone. You're not very far from the Badlands or Mount Rushmore. So like if you wanted to do like a family trip, that whole area is just a beautiful spot to get them all done like at the same time. That's something I plan on doing because I haven't been to Yellowstone yet. I've done all of the other stuff but Yellowstone. And then, so we stopped in Coeur d'Alene. It's just like, you see lakes.
Yeah.
Like okay, so Iowa does have one of the best lakes in the country. I will say that. It is Lake Okoboji. The problem with it, though, even though it's one of the most beautiful lakes, best lakes, huge lake, it's so popular. It's like too popular year-round. I remember going there as a kid, and like say on the 4th of July, you were not allowed to do any of the water sports on the boat, like tubing or ski or like water skiing or wakeboarding, because there had been a history of people getting hurt because the lake would be so crowded and overpopulated with people. So when there's nothing in a state and then it has one thing that's amazing, everyone flocks to it. That's pretty much what it says to you. Yeah. Whereas out here, you have such a plethora of amazing things that even though like some trails get overly populated with hiking, you can still talk to and meet local people. Like that's how it is for me because I'm meeting people as I got out here and learning new places. But people will take me to spots that I'm just like, wow, no one is out here at all with us. This is just so peaceful and beautiful and amazing, and no one knows about it because there's such a plethora of it out here. The most beautiful thing there in Iowa, basically, in my opinion, that Lake Okoboji, you can't actually enjoy it. So,
is it pretty like even not on the 4th of July? Is there still a lot of people there? A lot of like.
Not on major holidays. You can actually do water sports, but it's still really packed and populated. Yeah. Like, gosh, it's impossible to get land there now. That's the thing I know. The only way to pretty much live there now is if you, like get a condo, basically, type of a thing. That's pretty much the only way.
Dang. What part of the state is that in?
Lake Okoboji is, gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head. I just know that where I grew up in the like very northwest part of Iowa in a small town called Pocahontas, and it was a 2-hour drive from us. So it's closer to the center, but I don't know if it's in the center. It might be in like the north center, but don't quote me on that. But it's definitely in a beautiful lake. It's a fun time. Just like I said, it's just overly crowded. But back to what we were talking about, lakes, getting to Coeur d'Alene, driving there, we stopped there and we camped for a night and we hiked around in the area. But like just seeing that lake, and then like immediately first thing I thought when I saw the house is like, who are these architects and engineers? Holy cow. Good job. They probably got paid well worth their money building those homes.
There's some beautiful places there.
But seeing a lake like that, it brings up like so many like flashbacks of like TV and movies scenes, because that's how I had to live for 22 years of my life. seeing all these beautiful places. So like first thing I thought was like, oh my God, like I don't know why this reminds me of Jurassic Park, because it just looks so beautiful. It's just like, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
You see this great big body of water with all these amazingly tall trees, because there's no such thing as a plethora of trees where I grew up. Like,
Yeah.
which one positive about the Midwest, some of the best sunsets you'll ever see, and sunrises, because there's nothing in your way to block you.
Yeah.
It's coming straight up, and you get to see the whole thing, basically.
I gotta say, that's one of my favorite parts of being in the Midwest is the sunrises and sunsets.
Yeah.
It's unlike anything other.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep. But Coeur d'Alene is just super beautiful. So it's like, again, another place, one trip, how it's shaping my life. And the reason why I'm talking so much about how it shapes my life is because I hope that if anyone who's listening to this is, especially if they grew up where I grew up, where you knew nothing but farmland and you've never ventured out, but get out there and see some things.
Yes.
Because
sure.
for you, I know, Kyle, like, man, you're seeing things outside the country all the time. And I mean, you're almost done with seeing all the states right now. So, I mean, good kudos to you, man. I hope to be there someday. But I don't think most people are like you. And I don't think a lot of people take the risk that I do, which is get away from what you know.
Yeah.
And get away from what you're comfortable with and take a risk and go out and see if there's other things out there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It's, I think it's kind of sad too that I get it. You're in your comfort zone. You're in places that you know, people that you know, things that you know, whatever. But some of my best experiences, best life experiences, most rewarding moments, pretty much all the best moments have been going outside of my comfort zone, outside of my immediate, hometown and everything, and just experiencing different ways of life, different landscapes, all that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I totally agree. I encourage everyone to get out there and experience it. We were talking about the statistic. It's like about 50% of people never get more than 50 miles outside of where they were born. And that to me is just really sad.
I honestly,
there's so much you're missing.
I want to read. I wish. I wonder. We should probably read more into this data, because I wonder if it's worse in places where I grew up.
I could see that.
Because, I mean, I haven't lived out here long enough to be able to compare, I think, those two things, but I don't know. All my friends growing up back home, it's like, if they weren't with our friends, they were always with their family and extended family for big family events and things. And it was tough. I know when I finally made the decision to come out here, and Brad came out here with me, and all our other friends, we knew, like, deep down, and like, we're talking to each other about this still to today, but we knew they would never come. They've always talked about it. And we also kind of knew that they would probably never really visit that much. It's tough. It's not an easy thing to do. Leave your comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's so rewarding. Even if you just get out you don't have to move across the country or anything, but go spend a week, on the other side of the country or something like that. It'll open your eyes to the world, and I don't know. I feel like it's such a rewarding experience to get out there. But yeah, so Coeur d'Alene. Yep. You're hiking there.
Now we get to the real fun part.
Yeah, get into Washington.
Man. First thing we did was we went to Spokane. We stopped and we went there. I'm pretty sure we went to the mall and to like the IMAX theater. We watched Godzilla. My ears hurt so bad. But that was fun. So we went around Spokane a bit, and we ate some food there. But then once we left Spokane, we headed over to Quincy because we were going to the Sasquatch Music Festival. And I was so pumped about this because there were so many great bands that were going to be there. I was mostly excited to see Kid Cudi. I need to see him again. But coming and getting to the concert and seeing it, and when you get into Eastern Washington, that was like one of the first times where I was like, oh, this feels a little bit like what it's like living in South Dakota and Iowa. It's like just a very flat, kind of dry prairie. And going through all of that, seeing all of that, you're just like, okay, yeah, I could see myself living out here. This reminds me a little bit of home. But then when we got to the actual festival itself, and you saw the Columbia River and then the gorge area, it just looked so gorgeous. I don't know how to describe my first feelings seeing that, and just thinking, I was like, I know this isn't the Grand Canyon, but this is on the same level as far as how much it's at least capturing my thoughts of just, wow, what amazing beauty right now. And the fact that there's going to be people playing music here right in front of it, and then they built the seats right into the landscape of the hillside. Is like, what a beautiful outdoor venue. Yeah. And that was my first experience in Washington. And so you camped 3 days. That was an interesting, fun time. Going to the Sasquatch Music Festival was 3 days of camping with a bunch. Like, we learned that like somewhere between 30 and 40,000 people were at this thing, and I had never been to just a single concert before. So talk about just changing as far as being around so many people, obviously different cultures. Like when we got there, it was all Canadians that were around us, and some of the most nicest, kind people. I remember all 3 days there, we played a lot of games together and had drinks together and just had a good time together. And it was so great getting to talk with people that had they were different customs, different approaches to life. They did different things for fun and hobbies. Like I can't remember some of the games that we played because that was the one time we ever did it. But I remember playing different games with those guys, and it was a fun time. And so getting to get out of your comfort zone and do those things, that was just so eye-opening, and it just great for my brain. It was amazing.
Well, okay, first I'll say the Gorge, for anyone that hasn't been to the Gorge, that is one of the most beautiful concert venues on planet Earth. It is incredible. I would say besides Red Rocks, that's probably the best one in America.
What is your opinion between the two?
I'd probably say Red Rocks is better. I mean,
really?
It's more iconic, but the Gorge is a close second.
So, yeah, I don't know why. This is a crazy thing that Red Rocks is so iconic. No one in the Midwest knows about the Gorge.
Oh, yeah, the Gorge, yeah.
That's crazy to me because, in my opinion, I'm pretty sure Brad shares the same opinion. He and I both grew up in the Midwest, and we've both been to Red Rocks. We both think the Gorge is way better. We just think as a whole, that whole concert experience, maybe that's what it was that got us, but we appreciated that moment more than when we were at Red Rocks, and Red Rocks is gorgeous too.
I would say Red Rocks is more it's more well known and definitely more like constructed with the bleachers and everything, versus the Gorge is just, like you said, it's built into the landscape. Yep. And then you see the sun setting over the river and everything. Oh man, listening to some of the best music ever created.
It was, and just full days of music too. Like I'm pretty sure it started at noon, ended at midnight, or the last show started at midnight, and it was 3 days of that. Yeah. It was awesome, and so that was like a cultural experience in myself too, because it opened up my eyes to listen. I mean, I was always someone who listened to different varieties of music, but this really opened up your eyes because sometimes you wanted to really see a band, so you showed up early and you listened to the band before, and you may not have ever listened to that band before. But being around all those different people, like, because we were in the mosh pit for a good amount of it too, being around all those people, having a good time, like sharing positive moments with people, and everyone's there for the same thing. Yeah. So, like, everyone's there like in their own small groups or by themselves, but you're all kind of together. It's a joined experience, and there's something to be said about the impact that has on your mind in the moment. And for us, it was like at least the first day. I remember we were at that concert from beginning to end the first day. We did not do it the next two, but I remember that first day we were there from beginning to end. It was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think with meeting people from other cultures, like that's definitely one of the most rewarding and I think best experiences that we can have, because, you know, in the media we see all the bad things about other people, other cultures, other, you know, whatever. But then you go to a concert at the Gorge and you run into people from all walks of life, and they're all just looking to be happy, have a good time, enjoy the music, and you really can bond. Yeah, we have different customs and cultures and everything, but, you know, I think pretty much everyone wants to just be happy and enjoy life, and it's just fun to experience that with other people.
It really was. Yep, you summed it up perfectly there. And pretty much just sum up, so that was pretty much our first trip. We spent the last 2 days driving back home. We finally stayed in a hotel, so it was a 9-day trip. And
shower.
So no, to the shower experience, the first shower we took, it was at Montana. We found a spot in the rapids that was blocked off by this big boulder. One of my most favorite experiences, but it was terrible in the moment until you got out, hopped in that water. It was late May because it was Memorial Weekend. Okay. And that was so cold, but I remember my pores being so opened up. Hopping in those rapids, there was something to it where it takes you back to like basic human nature.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is satisfying to someone like me, but it was a very satisfying moment to be able to just be like, hop in the river. It's so freezing cold. There's no such thing as warm water. And you get out and like you bathed right there. And then you got up and the sun warmed you up, and you get the energy from the sun. You, like when you focus on it, it feels amazing when you're in the sunlight. But when you went from that cold, like in the morning, you woke up freezing cold. I mean, we weren't perfect at camping quite yet. That is one of my first times really camping, not camping at a pond. And so you woke up really cold, and then by the time that sun came out and you got warmed up, you cherished that moment. And then I remember, I think we hiked those first 2 days we were there at Woodbine. We did like 4 separate hikes because they had 3 trails, and we did 2 times. And the one we did 2 times was the waterfall one. We got further the second time. It was so cool. There was one part where there was enough rock formations in the middle of the water, and it was calm enough before it dropped off that I could get all the way to the edge, and we had a GoPro, and you could capture it going over. We had a bunch of great pictures of us like standing next to the edge of the waterfall. Still not even close to the top, but
dang.
It just...
Yeah, some of that picture, we can put it on the Instagram page.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll have to hit up my friend for that, because this was the time I did not go with Brad. I took Brad the second time.
Really?
So this was my first time, and my friends who I went with, most of them now... One joined the Air Force and went and saw the world, and then the others all became computer programmers and lived in Montana and Colorado, and I think they live in Colorado now because they learned to snowboard. So all of us after this experience went on to move away and see more of these things. Hence, to people who have never ventured out from home, please do. It might change your mind. It might open you up to things. It'll at least give you an experience. But... I forgot where I was going with that after I got off on that tangent.
With the picture, the GoPro.
Oh, yeah. So, we had like just amazing footage. Yeah, so I'll have to message my friends. They took all the pictures that I didn't have. I had a flip phone at this time. At 22, I had a flip phone at this time, so I did not have good pictures. They took all the amazing pictures. I remember I got a flip phone after because I left my flip phone. I got an iPhone after because I left my flip phone at Sasquatch. Oh, right. I left it on the top of the hood. Oh, no. And we drove home.
Oh, no. That's funny.
Oh, yeah.
That's also one of the joys of traveling is things don't always go as planned.
Hey, that flip phone was indestructible. It probably still works. It's just sitting somewhere, sitting in that just huge grassland that they have for people camping. But yeah, so to sum it up, that was my first time to a true national park. First time seeing mountains, waterfalls, rapids, seeing grizzly bears, and like we saw like bighorn sheep and rams. First time in Montana, Idaho, Washington. First time hiking. It was my first time being away as long as I was. Away 9 days from home. Yeah. Never been on a trip like that. And not that I was ever afraid, I just never have. And that was awesome. I enjoyed it. First time with a concert and a festival, I guess, is what you want to say, because the concerts, usually just 3. That was 3 full days. The biggest thing to take away from that was the preparation going into the trip. Because it was such a long trip away from home, and I hadn't been camping since I was like 12 or 13. Like, I camped a lot as a kid, but then when we moved to South Dakota, I didn't camp anymore because parents split up. No worries on that. But I had to get all my gear again. And I remember I probably spent about $1,500 before this trip on camping gear alone. Yeah. So if you're going to do something like this, and any kind of a trip, just always be prepared. It just pays off so much in the end. Yeah. I always would rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. And we were still under-prepared because, like I said, we didn't have everything down. We definitely weren't smart with how we slept. You got cold very quick because we slept on the ground, but we didn't do the layers thing that you should have done to give yourself adequate heat and prevent the cold ground from making you cold in the night. But we learned and we evolved.
Survived.
Yeah, I'm still here. But no, that was an amazing first trip. So we'll fast forward a little bit, unless you got any questions more about that trip.
No, I will just say one thing with you talked about showering in the river there. I think more people should do some of that kind of traveling where you're getting connected with the earth and like how life was before all the technology and all the stuff came in. I mean, that goes back to thousands of years of our roots of just living with the land. And I know for me, whenever I experience that sort of thing, you just feel better, you feel more connected, you feel more in tune with like your body, your mind, and then you get that sun shining on you and you're just, it's bliss.
It is pure bliss. But I mean, I'm not a doomsday prepper, but I definitely believe that something could always go wrong. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know how to survive without the cool technology we have today, which I'm so thankful for, but if you can't survive without that, I just truly believe there's like, with how long we're going to live, there's going to be a time where technology is not going to work. I have it in the back of my mind that there's going to be a time, who knows, maybe it's an hour, but what if it's not? What if it's longer? And it's just like, learn to survive. I like having the idea, knowing it's like, if I can learn good survival skills, and this is why I want to continue to educate and learn how to do things without all the amazing new technology we have today, so that way if something does go wrong, I will be okay. Yeah,
well, I mean, you just never know what situation is going to arise, especially when you're traveling. I mean, you might get stuck in a spot where you're like, okay, there's nothing around, I got to figure this out.
As simple as that. It literally could be as simple as that. You're right. But then we fast forward a couple of years, and so our other good friend Brad, he and I, and then our friend Todd, and wanted to go to Colorado because one of my good friends that I grew up with, so this guy is awesome. He chose an amazing path out of high school, went right into the Air Force, saw all of Europe, turned 21, moved back to the States. Perfect move.
That's nice.
But he settled back in Colorado. He was still in the Air Force, but he lived in Denver. And I don't know what spurred this. I think it just was the fact that a couple years before I had gone on this amazing trip and I hadn't done anything in 2 years, and I wanted to get my best friends to do it with me. And so we planned a trip to go see him and do some hiking and see some other amazing things in Colorado. And we went to this place. It was like the Guffey Gorge. It was near Pikes Peak.
Okay.
It wasn't Pikes Peak, but you could see Pikes Peak from where we got to the top is Point. And it was like, Paradise Cove and the Guffey Gorge. But I remember since when we weren't camping, I remember thinking, oh, I'm not going to bring much of the gear that I had, purchased. So I just brought like simple stuff.
Yeah.
Like my light pack with my, why can't I say it right now? My water pouch.
Oh, yeah, like the Camelback.
Yes. I don't know why I couldn't say it. It was escaping my mind. But I had that, and then a few snacks, carbs and stuff, the fatty stuff to give you energy, and that was pretty much it. Otherwise, we had no other safety gear with us at all, no first aid kits, nothing. Very smart, yes. Second time ever being out hiking. None of my friends had done it, and I was being a great leader. We had very little gear. So, funny story is, we were on trail there. And we met up with a group, and because we were a couple miles in, and then we stopped and we just, I think, caught some water, talked with the group that was next to us, and then we just had it in our mind, oh, we're just going to go off trail. We're going to just go straight up that mountain ridge, basically. And they're like, you guys are going to do that with the gear you have, and you're just going to go off trail? We're like, yeah, why? Is that a problem? Like, not being obnoxious. We were just like, we just like thought of it like, yeah, we see it in front of us. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
Easy. Not thinking anything else. We'll just do it. And so, yeah, we started scaling the ridge. And I remember we got to a point, and you asked Brad about this sometime because this is a very funny story, actually. We get to a point where I look down, I'm in front, and I tell everyone behind me, I was like, guys, we got to really think about this now. Are we going to continue here, or are we going to find another route? Because if we get up after this spot here, it's going to get so steep that we cannot go down this way. And they looked up, and I don't know what the optics are, but I noticed it too as I was coming up. The optics are different when you're looking up a mountain ridge, it seems, when you're looking down. So they were thinking, looking up, oh no, that's doable. We'll get back down that way. As soon as they all got up to where I was when I asked them that, they're like, oh shit,
yeah,
Dave was right. We can't go back this way anymore. Way too steep to go. It was just sketchy. We didn't have any good, none of us even had hiking boots, Kyle.
Oh gosh.
We just all had cross trainers, and then our hydro packs, basically. And so we got up past that, and we got up all the way to the top of the summit, and then we were just like, okay, we can't go down that way, so now we got to find a new way. And this was the sketchiest hiking experience I was on, because I remember there were parts where it looked like it was out of a movie scene, where you have to basically, no climbing gear, so you basically grab onto a rock that you're on that level already, and then you lowered yourself down to another platformed rock that only had about 2 feet to give you. And you did that numerous times until we finally got to more even terrain and were able to scale down again easier. But yeah, that was one of those times that we always joke about is, not being prepared, not really knowing what the hell we're doing, just doing stuff. Got real lucky. Because, that path we chose, too, was... We didn't have a map or GPS. We're just like, hey, this looks good going back down. Let's try this. And it happened to work. So to people who are going to say do more outdoorsy hiking activities and go off trail, don't be like me at least the first few times. Be smarter. Have a map, have GPS, have the emergency beacon, all that smart stuff. And obviously plenty of water and food.
If nothing else, make sure you have a first aid kit.
Yeah.
Even, my family and I are pretty experienced hikers, and always have first aid kit. Because things happen. You get scratches, things happen. And if you're stuck on the side of a mountain with no help, you're in trouble.
It was not our brightest hour.
Yeah.
But we made it. We made it out of there. And, honestly, that led to me being even more prepared the next time I came out here. Because the next time we came out the next year in 2017, I did a repeat trip with Brad. I had Brad convinced. Because he and I had always kind of talked as we were growing up, like, hey, how cool it would be if we didn't live here, live somewhere else. Because we've been tight since the first, second grade. But he never had a taste of what I had until that Colorado trip. So once he had a taste of what mountains were, he was more into that idea of being able to do that. And so I just remember We planned this trip like a year and 2 months, so 14 months in advance, basically. We started planning. I had already a lot of the gear that was essential for two of us. Like I had a lot of like amazing things such as like the tent, like stuff for the fire, things that were great and essential. He just needed to get his personal stuff, so he didn't have to spend quite as much money. But we still had to, prepare. So we let our closest other friends know too. And I just remember one by one they slowly bailed out as the months got closer to it, and that was always a recurring theme when it came to a few of our friends, which we love, but that's why they're still living. I mean, I will always have certain love for Iowa and South Dakota, but I do know that a lot of my friends, they'll take trips to places that are beautiful because they want to live there, but they're too afraid to actually move there. Yeah. And so that's why I don't get to see them too often. But, we try. That's why we planned a year in advance, but they didn't come. But anyway, we repeated it. We stopped in Nye again. I showed Brad the campground. That's, to him, too, his favorite campground as well. Did Coeur d'Alene, hiked and camped there, did the Sasquatch again. I'm happy we did Sasquatch because 2 years later they canceled it. Hasn't happened again. So we went to the second to last one, I'm pretty sure. Sasquatch Music Festival, amazing experience. And after that, though, what that led to was Brad and I, after Brad had the same experience that I had the first time, and we had serious talks about now, like, hey, we want to move here. Pacific Northwest. We didn't necessarily know Washington, but we're like Idaho, Oregon, Washington. Those three states were like very much on the table. And now it was just, we need to finish school, which I was just starting I'd finished my biology degree and I was heading into my 2-year program to go into physical therapy. And Brad was, I'm pretty sure, only had 1 year left of his before he was done with school. So he got done and made it out here before me, actually. But that's what helped me get out here. But anyway, I continued on doing more things, just seeing more beautiful things. My brother moved to Las Vegas, so I spent a lot of time going to Las Vegas. But if anyone thinks of Las Vegas as a place that's just for, all the, the extracurriculars that are on the Strip, check out Red Rock Canyon. That place is
beautiful.
Have you been there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So going there, there's like 4 or 5 different hikes, man. Have you done all of them?
No, definitely not.
So I think I've done all of them but one. I can't quite remember because I've done at least 4 of them. But there's, I think, 5 or 6, so I might have not done 1 or 2. But they're so awesome. You just have to be smart and go super early or late at night. Yeah, so you just can't be someone who sleeps in.
Vegas in the summer, not a good idea.
Well, so since my brother lived there, I usually went there twice. So I'd go in winter. Wintertime, you go anytime during the day.
Yeah.
And, man, like, you wear a stocking cap because, if you went early enough to just get past tourists or something like that. Usually it's funny. The tourists for those hikes never make it far because it's a desert. Yeah. I do like desert hikes for that idea. It's for some reason the tourists at every desert hike I've done, whether it be out here in the Yakima area, it just never seems like people who, and you can spot them by they're never prepared with the gear they have. Contradicting myself earlier saying I was prepared, but they're not even wearing like athletic gear. It's like you're dressed up to go out and you're out here hiking. Yeah, those people never make it far, so you get by those people pretty quick. And those hikes are so peaceful because it's like a desert, and they have some really beautiful landscapes for being a desert. Yeah, and I don't think that people who've never seen what it's like to be in a desert understand that the deserts do have some beautiful parts to them as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like, well, again, with traveling, I mean, you're going to experience such diverse landscapes, but I think a lot of people would be surprised by what they see in whatever destination they're in, because if whether it's you're going to Washington to experience the mountains, like, there's still going to be some surprises in there in the mountains too. You might see like a glacier, you might see there might be a patch where there is like a sort of desert type landscape inside there, and you just never know what you're gonna see. So it's funny you say the normal tourist. That again, one of my recommendations for traveling is get off the beaten path. Like, if you can get away from where all the tourists typically go, if you can get past where they typically go, whether it's a hike or something else, that's where the real fun begins, I think.
Oh yeah, no. And that's, so especially knowing that my brother who lived in Vegas for close to 10 years, we went to the Strip, I think, 3 times. I went there twice a year for 10 years, and I think we went to the Strip 3 times because he took me to all the places that the tourists weren't at, and that's how we had the best times.
Yeah.
But the desert hiking was just so fun because, like I said, those people basically, they showed up, they took pictures, and they left from the parking lot. You were never around anyone on those hikes, and if you went at the smart times, like either in the winter or early in the day when it was, obviously like summer through fall, which is seriously hot, it's just a great environment to hike in. It's a different type of landscape. When you finally come upon bodies of water, those bodies of water are so rare that you cherish being by that body of water, and like the pictures of like a little oasis. It's just beautiful. And that was my first desert hiking experience. And every time I went out to see my brother, I did it. I went out there pretty much every time after my first time doing that. I didn't go probably the first 2 or 3 years that my brother lived out there, but finally his wife and then one of our other friends, we decided to go out, and after that I went every time. And then pretty much after that, as far as me like making all of these choices building up to my final decision moment to move out here, because I mean, leading up to all this, I had been basically low-key telling like my friends, Brad especially, talking about Brad, but telling my friends and my family, like, this is inevitable. Like, I'm going to be moving west, especially because my brother already lived on the West Coast. My sister lived in Georgia. It's like, I don't really necessarily have a point. I mean, my mom lives here, but she's just going to retire soon anyway and move wherever one of us is anyway. Yeah. So that's not even a problem. So that's when basically it's like, okay, Brad moved out here before me, opened up an opportunity for me to take an internship here before I finished my last year of school. And so I came out here. I did... Brad was in Yakima. That's how I wound up in Yakima, and I had I think 12 weeks of internships, and then I was done and finally graduated and knew I wanted to stay here and live here. I just needed to get all the job situation down, and I did. But it was being here more than just the 3-day experience and actually being in more civilization, because when we were here in Washington before, it's like we stopped in Spokane briefly, but it was mostly we were at Sasquatch. Different type of experience. Now we're actually getting to have more of the culture of people who live in Washington. And it's just, obviously it's more diverse here in so many different ways. My favorite, I think, is obviously the landscape diversity, but the food diversity. Man, I love the food out here. Food out here, you guys have a lot more cultural differences as far as different ethnicities and races and different people who have moved from all sorts of places all over the world, and now they live here, and so they're bringing all of their cultured stuff here, and so you have all these different types of food, whereas where I grew up, it was, you ate the same thing all the time. Very much American like style food. If you were to like look up what American food is, like American bar and grill, that's what every restaurant is there pretty much. I
can just imagine, this is totally stereotyping, but a hamburger and some corn.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. Like that's not far off. That's very much a lot of what you got where I grew up. So for me, getting to it was my first time trying Thai food moving out here, trying Vietnamese food, trying Indian food. I mean, tacos and Hispanic food are some of my favorite, and it's so much better out here than where I grew up. There wasn't one amazing restaurant where I was living last that I always went to, because Mexican food and Hispanic foods are like my favorite. But out here you have so many more choices, and everyone seems to do it really well. It's fantastic from the food standpoint. What's
your favorite spot to go to here?
For what kind of food?
Just your favorite food. Your favorite food here.
Man, I'll have to break it up. Pizza, it's obviously Bronyar, you know that.
Okay.
Bronyar makes great pizza. It's just a fun place to go. We always, when we come back from Lake Rimrock, that's just a fun place to stop on the way home, have a beer, grab a pizza.
That's a fun reward for getting up into the mountains and hiking a little bit.
Yeah, well, dude, this summer when we get kayaks and we go up to Rimrock a bunch together, now I got my Subaru, we can go up there, and then when we come back, we'll stop by Bronyar, have a pizza. But yeah, Bronyar for pizza. I feel like I shouldn't even say for Hispanic food because there's so many different great places.
There's so many good places.
Yeah, so I'm not going to name one, honestly. I will say I do like going over to Xochimilco, over, I forget what that place is called, but where they have the pub as well.
Glenwood Square.
Yeah, Glenwood Square, because they have both those places, and they're very nice for food there. As far as like Pacific Island food, you've eaten at Easy Tiger, right? Mm-hmm. Easy Tiger. Yeah, that's probably, if I was to recommend one place in Yakima for people to eat, that would be my one place. Yeah. That I would recommend for people to go eat.
Yeah, that's a really nice place. I feel like it's definitely a little bit unique here.
It doesn't seem like it should be here.
Yeah, but it's like a higher end, like you said, Pacific Island or Asian type of cuisine. So yeah, that's a fun spot to hang out. Also, down in Wapato, so about 30 minutes from where we're at in Yakima here, or not 30 minutes, 20 minutes. There's a Filipino hall, and I think it's like every Thursday they have, meals where you can get the whole works. So good, so worth it. Worth the drive for sure.
We'll have to go sometime then.
Get the lumpia, all that stuff. Oh, so good.
And I'm still so very uncultured. So the first time I ever had sushi was when I went to see my brother in Las Vegas, and he finally introduced me to it. Mm-hmm. So and seafood's some of my favorites. So now that I live so close to the ocean, it's seafood is always an option for me, and I love that idea. I actually really want to get into fishing again because I love to do so much stuff outside. I might as well be fishing too. Yeah. But food here is amazing. Speaking of food, all the different metropolitan areas, South Dakota doesn't even have 1 million people in the entire state. Now I live in a place where it's a couple hours drive to Spokane, to Seattle, to Portland, and I'm very close to also Rainier National Park, like Leavenworth's not too far away, all these amazingly beautiful places. And I'm not going to go off because I could keep naming all these amazing places I could go to, but it's just what used to be, you either have to drive 5 hours to get to just the nice place in your state, or 14 hours to actually see mountains, is now, what are we going to do every weekend? Yeah, what do you want to do this weekend? All right, we're going to go here this weekend. Next weekend, we can relax and chill, and then the weekend after that, we'll go on this big camping trip again. Mm-hmm. It's nice having those options, and that's why ultimately I wanted to move here, because I wanted to have that freedom of every weekend I can see something that I haven't seen before. And that's how it was for me my first year out here. I had so many firsts my first year out here because COVID happened 1 month after, really took off 1 month after I moved here. So other than studying for my licensure exam, which got postponed by 3 months because of COVID, so I just had more time to study. Mm-hmm. But all I was doing was studying numerous hours a day, and then when Brad and Allie had free time, we were going off and they were showing me a new place to go hike. It's just every single weekend was a new place to go see numerous times, and it was such an amazing experience. Last year that didn't happen as much because I was in that car accident. I had to replace my car, so I was without a car for a while. But I fully intend this summer to do similar to what I did my first year out here, which was every weekend I'm seeing something new, and I have a list of places that I want to go see for sure. But the environmental differences in this state that I love the most, the elevation changes, it's amazing. All the trees. Don't let me drive you around, man, because I'll spend the entire time probably not driving fast enough. I'm just looking at everything, taking it in.
Another tree.
It's just a different kind of beauty, and that's why I always wonder, do people go mad if they move from a place like this to Iowa? or South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas.
I could see it.
I've met a lot of the people that I was friends with. I actually have a couple friends that live out here in Washington that I went to school with because they were baseball players. A lot of baseball players go to the Midwest to play baseball because most best baseball players are out here on the West Coast. And there's a lot of them, especially in the wintertime, are just like, fuck this place.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Wintertime in the Midwest, not the best time to be there.
It's miserable, man. There's no fun unless you're a hunter or ice fisherman. There's nothing to do in the Midwest, really. It's quite miserable because there's no elevation and no trees. Snow is not really snow like it is out here. As soon as wind comes, and I know they think it's really windy here, it's different.
Yeah, it's totally different.
There's nothing that blocks it. So when it's like 0 degrees there, it's -20 there because the wind's so bad. Yeah. So snow does not stay snow. It becomes ice quickly.
Yeah. I remember as a kid wondering, we would drive to Wyoming every year to go hunting, and once you got into Wyoming, you would see the windbreaks along that freeway. And for a long time, I was like, why do they have these random boards sitting out here in the middle of nowhere? And then finally I realized, it's to block the wind because there's nothing to block the wind out here.
That's why in the wintertime, it's just not uncommon. You see all sorts of vehicles, especially huge semis in the ditch. Mm-hmm. It's quite a sight to see sometimes after they get a blizzard. Because for me, I commuted a lot to go see my mom. She lived 40 minutes away from me. And after, you always expected about like 4 to 5 big snowstorms each winter. And on those drives, it was not normal. Just a 40-mile drive, you see at least 20 vehicles in the ditch. That's just how it is. Because a lot of people, there's a lot of bad drivers too, but then those trucks, that's got to be a pain in the ass trying to control all that mass with that wind coming at you. So there are some differences. The amazing difference, one of the most beautiful differences from where I grew up to moving out here to the Pacific Northwest, the bodies of water, man. Obviously you have the ocean here, but the bodies of water as far as lakes and rivers is so much different. It is clear. It's mountain water. It's blue. It's teal. It's a little bit of like beautiful, like not quite green, but it's not an algae green like it is in the Midwest, but it's just like all these amazing blues and teals clears.
I love seeing the glacier-fed lakes. They're just almost white in a way. It's so beautiful.
We got to the top of Kolchak. That was seeing that water. Whew, it makes the whole, like, you're getting exercise and you're getting an amazing experience with the hike, but when you get to the top and you get to the destination that you're trying to get to and you see all of that, you see Asgard Pass and you see Lake Kolchak, it's like, yep, this is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and thank goodness that we have it. And I'm just so fortunate that I'm out here and I'm experiencing it, because I could have easily made the decision to not come out here, go on that trip when I did in 2014, and then not make all the trips after that got me to where I am now. But the bodies of water, I remember thinking that a lot of this stuff is photoshopped, because I was like, okay, it's probably nice, it's better than probably our water, but it's not that nice. And then you come out here and you're like, no, it's that nice. Beautiful. Yeah. It's fucking cold though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
That's the only thing. That's the one other difference about the water.
Barely above freezing.
I remember going to Lake Rimrock for the first time with some of the friends I've made out here, and you're on the surface and it's nice, and then they're like, "Oh hey, go down." They know I'm not from here, and they're like, "Oh hey, go down a little deeper." It's like, "Oh, this water's nice." Go down a little deeper. Holy crap! Yeah. It's freezing.
Yeah. Straight out of the snowpack sitting up there in the mountains.
But Washington, like, if we think about Washington alone, you got national parks, national forests, you got the ocean, you got the desert, you've got a rainforest, you've got glaciers, you've got an active volcano, and that's just what I've coming to learn now. I'm going to keep learning new things about the Pacific Northwest, Washington specifically, because this is the state that's my home right now. But I mean, I talk about this with Brad every now and then, like, man, if we grew up here, I wonder what all the stuff that we would have done growing up, but now I'm just taking advantage of my time actually here now. Mm-hmm. But that entire list of things I read off, I could name numerous states that don't have any of those altogether. Yeah. It's different. Waterfalls too. That's another one. There's not a single waterfall where I grew up. And I remember my first drive out here with my friend Brad and Todd. They're like, "Hey, we're gonna go on a drive through Oregon. We're gonna see numerous waterfalls." And I was like, "Numerous?" I'd never even seen one. Yeah. I was like, "This is awesome." And then if we're thinking like even like popular landmarks, like if we were to talk about like the top tourist destinations, and I was thinking about this, I was like the top tourist destinations, outdoor tourist destinations in South Dakota. You got Mount Rushmore, Crazy Horse, Black Hills, Badlands, and then Wind Cave National Park. Mm-hmm. And those are all within like an hour and a half drive of each other.
Yeah, those are all really close together.
They're all on the very west side in Custer National Park, and maybe even some in Yellow.
I think, because I've actually been to all of those that you just listed off, I did them all within about 24 to 36 hours.
Yeah. So that was all a 5-hour drive for me. Yeah. It was like, so those are all in one spot. And while those are beautiful places, for you've been there. What are your thoughts compared to Washington and what Oregon, Idaho, what all the places in the world you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. They're all amazing to see. Badlands is actually one of my favorite national parks.
It is nice.
Totally different landscape from here in Washington, and so I really appreciate it having not seen that sort of landscape. But yeah, I have to say, like, if you compare it to like Mount Rainier National Park, the North Cascades, Olympic National Park.
I guess easiest to say, would it be in the top half of all your trip destinations or in the bottom half?
Oh, from a national park standpoint, top half. From like overall experiences, probably bottom half.
Okay. Honestly, I'm a little surprised by that. Yeah. I'm starting to think a little bit different because I know the Badlands are beautiful. Having been there myself too, it's a different experience. And that, speaking of that, we've talked about this numerous times. It's funny how you can be, where you grew up, you can just basically have that feeling of just, it's there, so you don't appreciate it as much. And then when you go elsewhere, you tend to appreciate those things more. It's funny how that works.
But I know, we've talked about it before with like, I haven't really explored... I haven't explored as much of Washington as you have.
No.
I've lived here almost my entire life.
I'm going to give you grief about that forever.
It wasn't until you started talking about it from your point of view that I was like, oh yeah, these are like some of the most beautiful places on earth kind of thing. I always took it for granted. I was like, yeah, we went to the mountains every single weekend. I didn't think anything of it.
Man. And that's why I'm not going to wish for a different starting scenario, because I'm very happy that I appreciate all this out here. And maybe I can help you appreciate it more. And I honestly hope that you rub off on me and inspire me to, along with other things, to see things outside of the country as well. And we've talked about that. We'll get into that more later.
Well, that's my hope for this whole podcast, is to inspire people to go to these places.
It changes the way your brain thinks. And it gives you an understanding of other people and other places.
Yes.
And if more people had understanding, I think we'd all agree that the place would be a little bit more peaceful. But that's another thing. We're not going to dive into that rabbit.
That's a whole separate podcast.
Yeah, we're not getting into that. But then we'll get to Iowa. So I'm just naming off the two states that I lived in. Kansas and Nebraska are very the same. But you get into Iowa and you got like sorry Iowa if I get this wrong, Makakita Cave State Park. I had to look that one up because honestly with Iowa it's even worse. I don't really know much about it. I've been to 3 of these places. Field of Dreams movie site is one of them. Like that's cool. Sad. No, it's not.
It's cool to see.
It's a farm, Kyle.
It was cool to see for like an hour and then...
It's a farm. I spent a lot of time on farms. I had numerous friends who lived on farms.
But it was a movie.
Oh my gosh!
I
Yeah.
appreciated it.
I mean, yeah, Kevin Costner's great.
I probably would never go there again. But
So, hey, I'll say this
cool.
funny thing. So, I've been there before, but my sister got married 10 miles from where that was
No way.
this last summer, and one of our cousins who had never been there wanted to go there with her kids, and she asked like me and my older cousins, my brother and a bunch of us, we wanted to go, and we're all just like, how do we subtly get out of this? And we didn't go because it was like, I don't get to see I just said I don't get to see my family that much now that I moved. I'm not wasting time.
Yeah.
I said it nicely, but I'm not wasting my time going to that. My point is, yes, you might think Field of Dreams movie site's great. If you've never seen a farm, you might think it's cool, but it's a farm. The Grotto of Redemption. You were in Iowa. Brad and I have talked to you about this. We actually grew up like 8 miles from this place.
Okay.
It's one of the most beautiful, like, hand put together, man-made grottos of just rocks and stones, and that this priest and some of his helpers basically put together in the middle of nowhere. It makes no sense. There's like, I think, religious stuff behind it too, but it's like you go through just tons of, it looks like it's almost like a trench that it was made to protect you, because there's all these different little like tunneled areas and trenched out areas and pathways that you follow, and it's just stoned all around you with different types of rocks and stone. It's very cool. I don't know like what the purpose was behind that, but I remember we went to it numerous times for field trips because it was just 8 miles away. But even that, like, that's in the top 5. And like I don't remember what site I looked on for like top 5 tourist destinations that were outdoors. But then Lake Okoboji, I talked about that. And then some state park where you're overlooking the Mississippi and Wisconsin rivers where they meet. So it's right on the east side of Iowa. And they talk about breathtaking view from 500 feet up. And that's to me, if I had grown up there saying that, 500 feet to me then would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Just like 7-8 years ago, that would have been amazing to me. And now that's 500 feet. Good for you.
Someone from Washington, I'm like, that's nothing.
Yeah.
That's a good like first couple minutes.
Yeah. And then let's talk about Washington. I mean, I stopped after just a few, but you got the Olympic National Park, North Cascades National Park, Mount Rainier National Park, Wenatchee National Forest. So those are just 4 government-protected places. And you don't have any of those pretty much. Where you have like 1 or 2 in South Dakota, but then you got the San Juans, the whole rainforest. We're doing that this summer.
Yeah.
All the waterfalls you guys got. And then obviously you get the oceans, desert, beaches. Like you just get so many beautiful, amazing outdoor things in Washington to go and explore, and I'm very much looking forward to it. My favorite places that I've been so far is Rainier National Park. Can't believe you haven't gone there. We're definitely going to go there this summer too. Leavenworth, Kolchak Lake.
Yeah, Leavenworth.
That was beautiful. Just go early, man. We went at 4:30 in the morning in the pitch black to beat all the crowds. The Wenatchee National Forest is beautiful. North Bend has some great hikes. Washington. Yeah. Mailbox Peak, Mount Si, and Rattlesnake Lake, or Rattlesnake Ledge, sorry. All in that area. That was awesome. We did all of those in like, I think back to back to back weeks. It was awesome. And it was my first time snowboarding and snowshoeing, moving out here. Those were fun, amazing opportunities. I'm gonna get into, I want to try more winter sports, like I want to try skiing again. I've done it before, but I don't remember it. Skiing, and I want to try, obviously, why can't I say it right now? Not downhill skiing.
Oh, cross-country skiing?
Cross-country skiing, you got it.
I'll try that too.
Yep. And then, I mean, I've just continued to broaden my horizon and go out. Since I moved to Washington, I've also gone to Lake Tahoe twice. That's a beautiful place. I mean, obviously, it's a very popular tourist destination, so do your research.
Yeah, for sure.
And make sure, you plan it out when you want to go so you can avoid the crowds, what you're going to do so you can avoid the crowds. but that's the highest elevation gain. I had to think about this hard since I've done any of my hiking stuff. It's the highest elevation I've gotten, which is only 7,743 feet. I say only because I have aspirations to. Obviously, I want to do Mount Adams this summer. That would be a great goal of mine. I think that's my most lofty goal this summer.
Yeah,
is to do Mount Adams.
That's a trek for sure. But I'm surprised you didn't get higher in Colorado or Montana.
Nope. I looked up those elevation gains where we got to, and they were the one in Colorado was 7,000 feet, but that was it. I've gotten to 7,000 feet several times, but a lot of the stuff I've done was more in the 6,000 to 7,000 feet so far. So obviously, I have a lot of work ahead of me as far as, getting some of these major hikes done, because I want to get a lot of, my big thing is getting to the summits. And so meeting some people that I've met has been a great blessing to me, because they're helping me to, have the knowledge and understanding of what it takes and what you need to do. Not that this is like a grueling task. It's just, be in shape, be prepared, have the right equipment, go with people who've done things before. Yeah. Especially if it's, a more tough hike, go with people that've done things before. I am the type of personality that I feel like I can do most anything. I just like to either have the knowledge to know how to do it, or I'd like to go with someone who's done it before, so I can see how it's done, and I can see it, and I can mimic that, and then I can learn from it.
Yeah.
So
smart.
Yep. And then I've been in Oregon a few times. That was beautiful. Went to Seaside, Cannon Beach, Astoria. Saw Haystack Rock, all the beaches there, all the breweries. It was beautiful. Finally, I've been to Utah too. Went to Utah one time when I visited my brother in Vegas. We drove over to Utah. Went to never honestly probably have ever seen this place before. Sand Hollow State Park. It was a beautiful desert oasis type of a feeling, where crystal clear, huge lake, where it was like copper sand on the floor, and the few places of shade that gave you shade, you camped out there so that way the sand wasn't burning your feet. But that was my first time ever going cliff jumping, because they had amazing spots to do cliff jumping there. And talk about, I love getting out of my comfort zone. When you look, the water's so clear, you see the bottom, and you're like, someone before me went and did it. They didn't hit the bottom, so they're fine. So you just tell yourself you're good, and you just jump. But that's pretty much the conclusion of everything that led me to where I am today, as far as someone who appreciates others who have gone out and traveled, and I continue to be that person to go out and experience new things. I mean, we've talked about it before. I truly want to explore everything in the Pacific Northwest and on the West Coast, and then I'll venture out a little bit more. I'll probably do a mix and match in between, but there's so much just here in our own country that I have to see. And for people who have never even done that, who grew up where I grew up, or maybe you didn't grow up where I grew up, but you still never left home. There's so much. We have one of the most beautiful countries in the world. For sure. Oh man, and I keep telling myself I've probably only seen maybe 5%, not even like 1% to 2% of the beautiful things this country has to offer, and so it's changed the way I think and do things now, and it's a very powerful thing to have, and I definitely think I'm a better person for it, and I hope others get that opportunity and seize that opportunity when they get it.
Yeah, totally agree. Everyone, go travel, get out there. It's totally worth it. Okay, one last question for you. How would you rate it, say scale of 1 to 10? How would you rate it in terms of your move out here? Was it worth it?
Oh man, it was over a 10. It was life-changing experience. Yeah, no, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. And obviously everyone's different. So find a place where what the things that you love to do and enjoy, you can do them as frequently as possible. That's probably the best advice that I could give is if you have hobbies and things that you love to do, live in a place where you can do those on a regular basis, because that's going to make you the most happy. I loved being outside and doing outdoorsy things, but I wasn't a hunter and I didn't like ice fishing. So moving out of the Midwest was the most logical decision for me. And now on a weekend basis, I mean, another great thing that I work 4/10s is I have 3 days to do things. And so I cannot wait for it to get nice again.
Yeah. Where's the first place you're going when it warms up?
We still got to plan that out, but we've been talking about it. Honestly, I mean, this is one thing that I still suck at is knowing when the snow is thawed enough in some of these higher elevated areas. I'm still such a novice when it comes to that. So I rely on like people like you or your dad or other locals to know when that is. Obviously, I mean, you can look it up yourself. That's one thing that's amazing. You can look anything up now, and someone's been there usually, and they'll tell you how it is. Yeah. But I mean, I'd love to get to Rainier as quick as possible. I'd love to do. You've never done Cold Check either, have you? Yeah, I'd love to do that one again and do that one with you. But whole rainforest. I don't know.
For sure.
That's closer to the ocean. I wonder if that gets thawed out quicker.
Yeah, there's not going to be snow over there.
Okay, yeah. That's what I figured.
Yeah. It's just going to be cold anyways. But.
Well, yeah, we can handle cold. That's the thing.
It'll just be wet. But even with the diversity of, I mean, if you go an hour west of here, the landscape is completely different.
Yep.
This is very dry over here. Yes, there's snow right now, but in the summer, incredibly hot. And then you go an hour west and it rains all the time.
Yep.
Like 360 days a year type of thing.
It's so
amazing to see.
The only state in the country that has every climate, basically, or like every landscape change, where you got the ocean and the beach, you've got the desert, you've got the rainforest, you've got just regular temperate forests, and then you've got the plains. Like you guys have it all. It's fantastic. In one state. Yeah. And I shouldn't say you guys, because I am one of those people now. We have this all to ourselves. It's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that is why Washington is the best state in the country, so the rest of y'all suck.
Don't. Not really. Every state's got their beauty. It's just states where I came from, if you're an outdoorsy person, they don't have as much to offer. You're a farmer, there you go.
Awesome. Well, any last advice, recommendations, or anything else you want to talk about?
No, honestly, just be prepared. Be prepared and share it with people that have similar interests, because I think sharing these opportunities with people, it makes the experience even better. I mean, maybe some people who are more introverted, but I definitely consider myself somewhat of an introvert, and I know Brad was too. And when we had that trip together, that was such a fantastic experience that he and I will always remember, because we wanted a lot of our friends to come, and none of them came. So we really were like, wow, we were committed to this. This was something that we worked at, planned for a full year, and then it led to us actually moving out here. So for us, that was a big experience. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, again, I think traveling, it can really bring people closer together. Whether it's people you meet along the way or people you're traveling with, there's just a bond that you have that's unique, because you guys experience these things together that no one else experienced, which is really cool to see. Well, cool. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. We did our best to make the Joe Rogan podcast there.
No, it was probably a little too long, but we just got into talking. And, I mean,
travel is just so fun to talk about. There's so much.
Yep. And I hope that we get to have more of these experiences, honestly, in the future.
We're going to have to do this again after we go to all the places here in Washington and talk about how amazing they all are.
We will, and then we'll broaden that to the world, man. Yeah. I mean, you got most of that covered already, but I'll join you on some of them in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dave, thanks for taking the time, and we'll look forward to exploring some of Washington and the rest of the world with you soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, bye, everyone. Hey everybody, Kyle here. If If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always listen to other episodes on Spotify or Anchor. The links are in the description below. If you want to see travel pictures from today's guest and other guests, as well as my own travel photos, you can see them on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. If you want to share your own travel pictures on the page and or share your travel experiences on the podcast, you can message me on that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to hear about your travel experiences and see all the beautiful pictures that you've taken. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and I look forward to sharing the world with you again soon.